Hello. So previously we started building a public API for a Ruby on Rails application, and at the moment we have users that can normally log in via device and they can generate API tokens. So I will generate myself an API token, and using this token I can make an authorized API request. So I'm going to use this token for bearer authentication, and I have also created the API root so I can make a request to API v1 home index. And going to the home controller, you see I would get a JSON response with the current API tokens ID and current user's email, the email of the user who has generated this API token. And it inherits from authenticated controller, where I say that to make this request, you need to pass a token in the request. And I can do a CURL request. So here are just some samples that I'm going to use to make this faster. And I'm going to make a GET request to home index inside the API. And I'm going to paste in my newly generated API token. And I'll try making this request via the console. So I'm making this request, and you see I've got the current API tokens ID and the current user to whom this API token belongs to. I can try doing it with another user, so I will log out, I will log in with another user, I will create an API token, again I will make a request with this API token, and here you see I have authenticated in the API with another user. Let me try disabling this token. I will refresh, I'll deactivate the token, I'll make the request once again, and you see bad credentials because the token has been deactivated. Okay, this is all good and fine, but we want to actually have real records in our application, and we want to allow users to get access to real records via the API. So we are going to start by creating some real records. I'm going to add a posts scaffold. So I will say Rails generate scaffold posts. Posts will belong to user, so user references. They will have a title, and let's say a body that will be text. Rails DB migrate. Now let us add the associations. So I will go to user.rb. I will say has many posts. Post.rb validates title, presence true, and let's try now navigate into /posts. And to create a post, I would need to input a user ID. So I don't want to allow this. I want to automatically associate posts with the current user. So I'm going to remove the form fields for user ID and go into the posts controller. Here I will say current user.posts. Oh no, actually not here. I will do it here. So new will be current user post new. In create it will be current user posts new post params. And here I'm going to disable actually submitting the user ID. Okay, let's try and see if it works. So first post, and it has been created and is associated with this current user. Okay, looks good. Now we go back to the controller, and here we can see that we have these scaffolded responses in HTML, the usual format that we use to see everything in our application, and also in JSON. So previously, really, when doing scaffolds, I considered this format JSON as rubbish code that I don't need in most of my applications, and I would have just deleted it. But in this case, we do need this format JSON. So what does it do? It allows us to make not only HTML responses and get not only HTML requests and responses. So if I go to posts.json, I will get the index response in format JSON, and I get an array with, well, just one post. Let me create one more post so it is more visible. So let me create a new post, second post. Okay, now I go to posts.json, and here I see an array of two posts. So the post with ID 1 and ID 2. And I can go to, for example, posts/one.json. I get the post with ID 1 in a JSON format. And how does it work? How do I generate these arrays? Well, the format JSON looks for the template in our views post for index JSON builder or show JSON builder, and going to the index, for example, it iterates through all the posts and renders the partial post. It renders this partial. And let's just go back. Right, it renders this partial 2 times because we've got 2 posts. And for example, I will remove this updated at, refresh, and you see updated at is not displayed for the posts. What if I want to, for example, additionally display the user's email, the email of the user that created the post instead of the user ID? I would say json.user email would be post.user.email. I refresh, and here instead of the user ID, I get the user's email. So looks good. This way we can customize our JSON if we want to. But anyway, how can we make a request via our API to, for example, get the posts or get a single post? Well, we can try doing it again via curl. So going back to the README, here I have some example requests, and I would try getting our local host post.json without the bearer authentication. Let me try doing this, and I need to sign in. It is because posts controller inherits from application controller, and in application controller I say before action authenticate user. So let me skip this for this demonstrative purpose. In the post control I will say skip before action authenticate user, and I can make this get request. I get all the posts. I will try to get just 1 post. I get 1 post. So this way we can out of the box use a Rails scaffold and make curl requests. But we want to use this in our API. So how can we do this in our API? Well, I will start by copying the post controller into our API folder. And it will inherit not from application controller, but same as home controller from API version 1 authenticated controller. Like this. Okay, now let's try making a request to get all the posts. So I'll go back to our README where I was playing around, and I will try to make the request with a valid token. So let's see if this works. I will try getting all the posts. It didn't work. Let's see what the error was. Root in error. No root matches get API version 1 post.json. Okay, because I need to add it to the roots. So I will now I have resources posts, and I will also have resources posts inside our API. And I'm not going to need the the new and update actions, because those are just HTML templates that don't have a JSON response. So I would say only index show create update, and what is the last action? It is destroy and destroy. So it is like accept edit and new actions. Okay, let's see if this works. I will make a request once again. I still get an error. Superclass mismatch for post controller. Going back to our post controller, it should also have API and v1. So API v1. Let's see if it works now. Bad credentials. Okay, let me try generated a new API token. Maybe this one was invalid. Go into the README. Let's make a request. And do I get a response? I don't think I do. Yeah, because I need to have some kind of template to respond with. You see, it is rendering head, no content. So we are going to actually move these JBuilder responses into our API. We don't really need them inside our posts, we are going to have this JBuilder responses in our API version 1 posts folder. So I've already created API version 1 posts, and let me actually generate new JBuilder files. I can say Rails generate JBuilder API v1 posts. Post has user references. It has title. It has that is string. It has body that is text, and the model name is post. Okay, it has generated 3 new files. Let's have a look at them. So we have use API v1 posts. Here we have index, show, and single post. Let's just update the paths because they have not been generated correctly. So it would be API v1 posts. Actually, this could be a good pull request to make for the JBuilder gem so that it generates the paths correctly. So API v1 posts. Yeah, and same goes here. API v1 posts post. And let's try making the request once again. And here I got a list of posts. Okay, now going further, we will not want a user to be able to get all the posts via the API. In the API, let's say he'll be able to get only his own posts. So it will be current user.posts. Let's try once again. And are these actually the current user posts? Let's see, user ID is 1 and user ID is 1. Okay, let's just, for the sake of example, create some posts for the second user. I will log in as the second user. Go into posts, post by second user. Okay, let's try making the request once again. And yeah, we still get just 2 posts. So works. Let's try getting just one of these posts. So I will get posts slash 1. And I did get the first post. What if I try getting another user's post? Another user's single post. Let's make a request as posts slash 3. So the third post should belong to the other user. You see the user ID is 2, but I still managed to get the single post that belongs to another user. So I don't want to enable this. And for this, I'm going to go to the post finder, and here I'm going to find only posts that belong to the current user. So current user.posts. This way, when going to the show action, a user is going to be able to find only his posts. Let's try doing this. And I get an error. What is the error? Record not found. Okay, so it is good. The user did not manage to access another user's post, but we get this not found error. So we need to somehow tackle this error. And we can actually rescue from this error on the authenticated controller level. So all the controllers that inherit from authenticated controller will be tackling this record not found error in the same way. Let's say rescue from record not found with, and we're going to add a method handle not found. And now let's create this handle not found. It will be def handle not found, and we will also run the JSON. We will say record not found, and status will be not found. Let's try making the request once again, and you see we get this record not found error. Let's try making the request to a record that we can access, so posts 2, for example. and we do get a JSON of the second post. Okay, this works. Now, how can we create or update or delete records via the API? Let's try doing it. So here I have an example of a post request. Let's again get a valid token. I will have so post to API v1 post.json, and the post will have a title via API, for example. Let's try making this request and see if we get any errors. So making the request, and we do get an error that is InvalidAuthenticityToken. So we need to allow API requests to actually create or modify records, and we are doing it only for authenticated API requests. So let's handle this error by going back to our authenticated controller, and here we will say protect from forgery with null session. Let's try making the request once again, and it looks like the record has been created. Let's have a look at our logs. Yes, a record has been created.
Cindy.
Yeah. Okay, let's actually try having a look at this newly created record in the list of posts. You see, we have this record that has been created by the API, so it seems to be working. Looks nice. Let's now try updating a record via the API. So I will have, for example, the last post that has been created. It is the post with ID 4. So we are going to make a patch request to the post with ID 4 with the valid API token, and we are going to have some kind of title that we have edited this record. Let's try making this request. And it seems to have been updated. Oh, not really. Unpermitted parameter user ID. Yeah, because here you see I also passed the user ID. I was kind of trying to kind of hack into changing the owner of a post. So it didn't work because I have already removed the user ID from the post params. But if I had not removed the user ID from the post params, I would have been able to reassign a post to another user. Anyway, going back, I will have to remove this user ID so that I'm not sending it in the request. Let's just see if it has been saved. Yeah, it has been saved, but the user ID has not been updated last time. Let's try editing it once again and see if we get any errors. Okay, we managed to update and no errors. Let's refresh, and yes, it has been updated. Now let's try also destroying a record via the API. So here I'm just going to need the post's ID. So it'll be post 4, and I'm going to set the token. Let's make the request to destroy this record. And yeah, we seem to have deleted it. Let's refresh. Yeah, the record does not exist anymore. Going back to posts, and the post with ID 4, the one that has been created previously via the API, isn't there anymore. So looks quite good. Now, what if we try deleting another user's record? Let's delete the post with ID 3 that, as we see, is created by the other user. So let's see if it works. And you see we get message record not found, because in the current API setup, we can find only our own records. So via the API, a user can create, view, update, and delete only his own records. And just to clean up this controller, we can remove the HTML responses, because they just can't be performed via our API. Like, we want to respond only with JSON in our API. So removing the HTML responses, and this is about it. So we have created a post scaffold. We allow in our UI for users to create posts. So the post is automatically assigned to the current user. And via the API, a user can generate a bearer token and make API requests to get his posts, to get a single of his posts, and to edit his posts. And he cannot access other users' posts via the API. So yeah, this is about it for this episode, and see you in the next one.